You get up in the middle of the night to urinate, you stretch again, you get up again to urinate, you stretch again, and so on several times. Then the alarm goes off in the morning, and it turns out you haven't slept at all. I saw a video somewhere that talks about taking a spoonful of vitamin B1 at night to avoid getting up to urinate, but their explanation of how it works isn't quite right. And not only that, but it's not that simple. Furthermore, if you address the wrong cause, you often end up missing the real one, which is the one that can solve or alleviate the problem. That's why in this video, I'm going to explain why you wake up to urinate at night, what causes you to produce more urine, and secondly, the cause that isn't usually investigated or asked about, but is important. And thirdly, what science says about supplements. Before talking about vitamins, I need to explain something that probably no one has told you about what happens inside your body when you go to bed at night. Because the problem often isn't in the bladder. Think of your kidneys as a factory that works 24/7. During the day, this factory produces urine at full capacity. This makes sense because you're active, you move around, you eat. But what happens at night? When you go to bed, this factory should slow down, produce much less, let you rest, and switch to the night shift. So, how does our body do this? Well, it does it with a hormone that acts as the night shift supervisor, and it's called ADH, antidiuretic hormone, which you don't need to memorize. What's its job? It's simple. It goes to the kidneys at 10 p.m. and tells them, hey, listen up, tonight concentrate your urine and reduce production. Okay? What's the problem? That over the years, this supervisor arrives later and later, or sometimes not at all, so the kidneys keep working their day shift, and even at midnight, they're still producing urine as if it were 3 in the afternoon. And of course, your bladder fills up, waking you up. This actually has a technical name, nocturnal poliuria. What does that mean? Simply that your body produces too much urine at night. And it's not because you drink a lot. It's not because your bladder is small, but because the person on duty, the one working the midnight shift, isn't doing their job. ADH, antidiuretic hormone. And here's something interesting. No vitamin can fix this. What does help, and there's evidence to support it, is giving the body the necessary conditions for this person in charge, this ADH, to function better. What helps? Well, there are 3 specific things you can do. The first is the timing of your diuretics. If you're taking pills for blood pressure, or your heart, such as furosemide or hydrochlorothiazide, and you're taking them in the afternoon, what you're doing is programming your kidneys to keep working at night. Then talk to your doctor to see if you can take them in the morning. But of course, don't change the schedule on your own. Check your medication schedule first. Second, the salt at dinner. Salt retains water during the day and in the tissues, as I explain in other videos. And when you go to bed, this water returns to the kidneys all at once. So eat a bland dinner, and that way your kidneys will have less work to do at night. Third, elevate your legs. What do I mean by that? Well, a couple of hours before going to sleep, while you're watching TV or reading, put your legs up above your hips in a comfortable position. This gives the fluid time to return to the kidneys so you can eliminate it before going to bed. You can urinate earlier, not during the night at 3 in the morning. And there are other causes besides the ones I've mentioned. There's a cause behind many of these cases of nighttime awakenings, and it has to do with what happens when you breathe while you sleep. There's a question that isn't asked much when someone says they get up 3 or you might urinate 4 times a night, but it's interesting to ask, do you snore? It seems unrelated, like urination is one thing and snoring is another. But it's important to consider this. Imagine that every night while you sleep, someone in your room turns the light on and off every hour. Each time the light comes on, your brain emerges from deep sleep, rises to the surface, so to speak, and checks that everything is all right. It also notices that your bladder has some urine, not much, but enough to last until 6 in the morning without a problem. But the brain, having just emerged from this deep sleep, is on alert, and decides it's best to act now. Well, this is exactly what sleep apnea does. When there's apnea, the throat closes, it can partially or completely collapse while you sleep, oxygen levels drop, the brain detects this, detects the threat, and forces you out of deep sleep so you can breathe normally. You don't fully wake up, because often you don't even remember it, but sleep fragments into small pieces. And when sleep is fragmented, it's much easier for any bodily signal, including the urge to urinate, to pull you out of bed. It's easier to make you get up to urinate. So imagine two security guards. One is fast asleep in his chair and you have to shake him hard to wake him. But the other is half asleep with one eye open and will wake up and get up at the slightest provocation. Well, sleep apnea turns your brain into this second guard, as if it were always half awake, always reacting to signals that aren't urgent. But it's not just that. By forcing your breathing with a closed throat, you trick your heart into believing, through a series of processes, that there's more fluid in your body. And what does your heart do? It orders your kidneys to produce more urine as a last resort to eliminate it. And what you're doing is literally telling your body to produce more urine. Simply put, two things happen. First, you wake up more easily for the reason I mentioned at the beginning. Second, your body can produce more urine at night. And here's a very interesting fact about what we're discussing. In a recent study, they reviewed patients who had problems urinating 2 or more times a night. What we're talking about here, and what the urologist did, was refer them for a sleep study. Of those who completed the test, all had obstructive sleep apnea. And what was the most interesting thing? Well, those who started treatment with a CPAP mask reduced their nighttime bathroom visits, the number of times they got up to urinate, while with urinary medication there was no clear improvement. Of course, it's a small study with losses to follow up and doesn't prove that all nocturia is caused by sleep apnea, but it does make one thing clear. Getting up several times to urinate during the night isn't always a bladder or prostate problem. Sometimes the real cause is sleep disrupted by how you breathe while you sleep. That is, by undiagnosed obstructive sleep apnea. So, how do you know if this might be the case for you? Well, you don't need to get tested yet, but you can ask yourself 3 questions to suspect it. First, do you snore? Second, has your partner or someone at home ever told you that you stop breathing for a few seconds while you're sleeping? And third, do you wake up with a dry mouth or a headache, even though you've slept all the hours you thought you needed? If you answered yes to any of these questions, or to all 3, talk to your doctor and ask them to evaluate you to see if you might have this sleep problem. And in the case of sleep apnea and treatment, many people stop getting up to urinate without taking a single additional pill is something worth considering. Now, what if you don't have sleep apnea, you don't take diuretics, and you still get up to urinate at night? This is where the topic of supplements, which I mentioned at the beginning, comes into play, and where we need to correct some information that you've probably seen in videos and that's often misunderstood. Let's go back to vitamin B, specifically thiamine, because I don't want you to get the impression that it's a scam or that you're naive for taking it. Vitamin B is a real vitamin. It's called thiamine, and it's important. Its functions are well documented. The problem isn't the vitamin itself. The problem is what's claimed about it in some videos, like taking a spoonful, and that will allow you to sleep soundly without urinating. To give you a simpler visual, think of the nervous system as an electrical installation. It needs a constant supply of energy to function properly. Vitamin B, thiamine, is not a sleep switch or a natural brake on the brain at night. It's not that. Its role is more fundamental. It helps cells, especially those of the nervous system and the heart, to produce energy efficiently. Energy to function. Without enough vitamin B, the system will function less effectively. This is of course true and well documented scientifically, but some videos make a leap that science doesn't. Just because a vitamin participates in the normal functioning of the nervous system doesn't mean that taking it will improve sleep. These are separate issues, and in the case of vitamin B, there is no good evidence that supplementation helps older adults sleep better without a clear deficiency. When might it make sense to talk about vitamin B or take it? Well, in specific situations. For example, patients who take diuretics like furosemide or other potent diuretics for extended periods, especially if they also have heart failure or fluid retention. This is because it can contribute to thiamine loss. In these cases, a doctor can assess whether there is a deficiency and if supplementation with this vitamin is necessary. But this is a clinical medical decision. It's not a matter of taking a spoonful before bed to urinate less. And what about magnesium? Well, this has more of a basis. Magnesium participates in many functions of the nervous and muscular systems, and there are some studies that suggest it can improve certain sleep variables in people who sleep poorly. It's not a miraculous effect, nor is it proven to be a major treatment, but there are signs of benefit in some people. In short, to put it simply, It can help somewhat, but it's not going to work miracles. That's important to understand. Here's the connection to the problem of nighttime urination. If you sleep deeply and with less fragmentation, it's easier to ignore non-urgent signals during the night, including a bladder that still has some urine, but can wait a few hours. There are two other important nuances to consider regarding magnesium. The first is that the form matters. Magnesium oxide is generally less well absorbed and causes more digestive discomfort, such as diarrhea. If you decide to try it, it usually makes more sense to use a more well-tolerated form, like bisglycinate. Secondly, just because it's a supplement doesn't mean it's harmless. You have to be careful because magnesium can interfere with the absorption of some medications, especially certain antibiotics and other drugs. If you take regular medication, it's wise to consult your doctor beforehand to avoid problems. And that said, and this is important, neither magnesium nor any supplement, nor vitamin B, will resolve the untreated sleep apnea we discussed earlier. Nor will they correct kidneys that produce too much urine at night if the underlying cause lies elsewhere. In other words, supplements are at most the last adjustment we should make, not the first. That is, the first thing is to treat the cause and then, if necessary, provide support, which could include supplements. There are situations in which getting up to urinate at night isn't a simple irregularity. It's a real alarm from your body. And you have to pay attention to the warning signs. What are they? Well, I'm going to explain 3. Sign number 1. You notice a burning sensation or see blood even just once in your urine, or you have a fever. In that case, forget about vitamins and supplements because this points to an infection or a mechanical problem in the urinary tract that needs a medical checkup. Don't wait. Secondly, sign number 2. You get up many times, but produce very little urine. If you also notice swollen ankles during the day or shortness of breath when walking, this could be important, because it could mean that your heart is pumping less effectively during the day, your kidneys are receiving less blood, and then they have to work harder at night to compensate. Don't ignore this. Third, you're getting worse. If you wake up every week, for no reason, your body is telling you that something isn't resolving itself and you need to see a doctor. It's important to find out what's going on. If you have 0 of these 3 warning signs, great. Then I'll give you a quick roadmap, a practical plan. First, adjust the timing of your diuretic pills with your doctor. Second, check if you snore or choke while you sleep. If so, a sleep apnea test would be a good idea. Third, if you're going to use magnesium, choose bisglycinate and not a cheap oxide, and ask your doctor if you're taking heart medication or if there might be any incompatibility. And what about the vitamin B1 that some videos mention? Well, it won't hurt you, but it's not going to shut off your bladder. Save your money for something that actually works, to put it simply. Now, if your awakenings are different, I mean, you wake up suddenly with a racing heart, palpitations, or your head spinning, but you don't feel the urge to go to the bathroom, then the trigger that wakes you up is different. I explain how to turn it off in this video I've linked here. Take care, hugs, and see you in the next video.